this is the Publins Academy reviewers criteria. Like, what are the things, what are the points the reviewers will check in your article? I can see that abstract, okay, the title and the references. So, is the aim is clear? You can see here that they're asking for whether the aim is clear in your abstract. It is clear what the study found and how they did it. Is the title informative and relevant? Or the references relevant, reasoned, referenced correctly, or appropriate key studies included? Okay, so based on this, the reviewer will be giving you the comments, giving the editors, your journal editors, a comment like how you have written all these things, whether to accept or not, whether this is good, poor, bad, fantastic, like that. Okay, so the introduction and background, if you see it, is it clear what is already known about the topic, and is the research question clearly outlined? Is the research question justified given what is already known about the topic? Okay, so these three things will be very important for introduction. And if you go with the methods, is the process of subject selection clear? So you can write the flow of your research. Okay, are the variables defined and measured appropriately? Are the study methods valid and reliable? Is there enough detail in order to replicate the study? Okay, so this is what in the methods. So if it is in the result, is the data presented in an appropriate way? Tables and figures relevant or clearly presented? Appropriate units, rounding and number of decimals, you have to tell in which unit it is. Okay, like ms, okay, or mu, or any other meters, you have to tell right properly. Titles, columns and row labeled correctly and clearly. So if you are writing the results that is in the table, row, column, the caption, everything should be clear. Categories grouped appropriately. Does the text and the result add to the data, or it is repetitive? Is it repetitive? Okay, whether you have used the same words which you have in added in the paragraph, whether you have copied the same sentence from the paragraph and pasted in the table or column. So that is what they're asking for. Okay, so are you clear about what is practically meaningful result? Whether the result really giving you some insight, you should understand the result, right? So that is what they're asking. Discussion and conclusion, are the result discussed from multiple angles and placed into context without being over interpreted? Okay, do the conclusion answer do the conclusion answers the aim of the study? So in the discussion and conclusion, they are cross checking with the introduction. If you have mentioned any research problem there or the hypothesis there, they'll be cross checking it here. Okay, are the limitations of the study fatal, or are they opportunities to inform future research? This is what important in conclusion. You have to tell the upcoming researchers, right, what are the challenges you have faced, and what is the limitation you have, and what they can if any other gaps which you felt it is there in your research, it was there in your research, so that the young researchers can take up as a challenge and find the solution for that. Okay, that should be there in your conclusion. And overall, was the study design appropriate to answer the aim? Okay, what did this study add to what was already known on this topic? Okay, whether it is added or whether it is already there only. Added means you have did something in the research. What were the major flaws of this article? And is the article consistent within itself? And finally, they have to write, that is a reviewer. As a reviewer, we will be writing the overall statement or summary of the article and its findings in our own words. Okay, and overall strength of the article. So for example, if this article was published is published in their journal, so what is its strength? Okay, and specific comments on weakness of the article and what could be done to improve it. If any weakness was there, what is the weakness and how they can improve it? Okay, so this is what the reviewers will be seeing. So from this, I'm going to give you some important tips and important points where you should follow to make your paper 100% accepted by SCI and Scopus. Hello everybody. In this video, I will explain how to prepare your research paper for SCI and Scopus Journals, which will be accepted for sure. Please see this video until the end so that you will not miss even a single important points. So these are all the sections which you should cover, right? Like title. Even from the title, it speaks a lot. Abstract, keywords, introduction, literature review, methods, results in discussions, and conclusion. I'll tell you in reviewer's point of view. As a reviewer, I am a reviewer for two Scopus Index Journal. So I know what are the aspects which we'll be looking at every individual papers and how what is the acceptance rate of that as well. Let us talk about title. The title summarizes the main idea of your study. A good title should contain the fewest possible words needed to adequately describe the content or a purpose of your research. For example, if you want to if you want to write a paper on cancer prediction, then you should include the word cancer prediction in that title. Avoid too many words. For example, a study to investigate, an examination of, a detailed survey about the paper. Like that, few words you should avoid because too long title denotes too many unnecessary words are there in your title. So you should write it very clearly, like what is exactly your research paper talks about. The narrative tone of the paper typically you have to define by the type of the research and methods used to study the problem. So, if you have used a decision tree algorithm for predicting a cancer disease, I'm basically from computer science. So, I'm just telling in my example, with my example. So, what I would like to tell you is you just narrate this, try to compare this with your domain, and you can formulate the title. For example, if I'm going to write a paper on predicting the cancer disease and I'm using a decision tree algorithm, then I can write cancer prediction using decision tree algorithm. If you are using any other tools, for example, if you are using a data mining tool like a rapid miner or a MATLAB or any other tool, you can include that tool name as well in the title. So that is what the very first thing is. Title is very very important, and the title should not be this name which is already included. For example, few titles will be available which will be already published. So first go and check whether the title is already there, whether anybody has published an article on the same title. So better do not use the same title, then try to rephrase the title. So in the upcoming video, I'll be telling you like how to choose the title, how to auto generate a title with a tool. So we have an online tool. With that tool, you can generate the title. So I'll discuss in the upcoming video. But now let us proceed with the next important thing, which is abstract. So before that, I would like to tell you that you can include the purpose of the research, okay, the scope of the research, and the methods used to study the problem. These three things you can use to formulate a title. Okay, so let us proceed with abstract. As we all know, abstract is will immediately comes after the title. So an abstract summarizes usually in one paragraph of 300 words or less. But in that 300 words, you have to cover these four important topics, like the overall purpose of the study and the research problem. Okay, the basic design of the study, major findings or trends found as a result of your analysis, and a brief summary of your interpretations and conclusions. So these four things should be there. These four criteria should be there in your abstract within 300 lines. Because in my previous video, like how to write a literature review, that I have explained that by reading the abstract itself, the reviewer will come to understand what unique thing you have researched in your paper and you have depicted in your paper, so that you can showcase only in the abstract. So abstract should be very very clear. So you can use active voice in the abstract, but you should use a passive sentence or a past tense in abstract. Okay, so abstract should be formatted as a single paragraph in a block format and with no paragraph indentations, that is only one paragraph. Fine. And do not cite anything in the abstract. You should not cite anything in the abstract because this is completely your own research. So you should not cite anything inside the abstract. Be clear about it. Fine. So abstract, only 300 words. Use a past tense and don't cite anything. The next one is the keywords. Keywords are another important aspects for every papers, every article. So keywords you should choose wisely. Like whenever somebody is searching through the internet, these keywords will be working as an SEO. Okay, so it is very very important to write the keyword. So what you have to do is you have to pick the words or the phrases from your complete article which you are formulating. Okay, so in that, for example, cancer is an important keyword, so that you can write it. Decision tree is an important keyword, that you can write it. Which tool you are using, that is an important one. So important terms, yes, the important terms you can write it in the keywords. So keywords are important in most of the journals. They'll be asking you to write only few keywords, okay, like 6 to 7 or 8. So that 8 words should be very very important words which are there in your article which you are writing. Okay, so next is an introduction. So the introduction is the another important thing where you have to write these things, okay, like the background information about the topic. What is the background information about the topic that you have to write? For example, you can give some introduction to your the introduction to the cancer or cancer disease, and the next one you can write is what purpose of the work in the form of research problem supported by the hypothesis or a set of question. So what is the research question you're going to solve in your paper, that you can write it in the introduction. Write a brief methodological approach which you try to examine in the research problem and highlight the potential outcome of your study. S- what is the outcome? And you can also write like what how you are going to structure your remind like the paper, the complete paper. Okay, these things you can include in the introduction part. So in the introduction part, definitely there will be many references because there you are going to the basic things you are going to write it there. So it definitely it will include some references. So next one is an literature review. So the literature review surveys books as scholarly articles and any other sources relevant to a particular issue, an area of a research or theory, and that will provide you a description or a summary and a critical evaluation of these works in a relation to the research problem being investigated. So obviously in the literature review we will just write the overview of the sources which you have explored while researching a particular topic. So you may write about what are the papers which you have reviewed to understand about the cancer, and what are the various papers you have reviewed to understand about decision tree and the combination of decision tree which is uh, which is used to predict cancer disease. Who are all the authors that you can include? So even in literature review you have to include references. Next is methods. In almost all the research paper, we are talking about the research paper, in all the research paper, the method section should describes the action to be taken to investigate a research problem and the rationale for the application of a specific procedure or technique used to identify, select a process and analyze the information applied to understanding the problem. So which method you have used in your for your research? Okay, so this method should answer two main questions, that is how was the data collected or generated and how was it analyzed. These two things you have to include in your method. So if you have used an interview method of data collection or a survey method or questionnaire method, so whatever the method you have used to collect the data and how you have used using which tool you have analyzed it or whether you have tried by your own, so all these things you can write some more thing, like if your data, you can write the outline of the data in a table format. So this everything you have to write it, and a method should be direct and precise and always written in the past tense. So throughout your paper you'll be writing only in the past tense. You should not use any pronouns like me, I, my team members, we. Okay, so these are the pronouns, you should not use this in the paper. You should always use the generic words, like in this paper, the or the objective of the papers. Okay, like that. So next is the results and discussion. So here we can even segregate into result as a separate section and discussion as a separate section. In few journal template they'll give you as a results and discussion as a whole. So the result section is where your report, the you will report the findings of your study based upon the methodology you apply to gather the information. The result section should state the findings of the research arranged in a logical sequence and without a bias or interpretation. Okay, so you should be very very clear while writing the result section, because always the methods, results and discussion and conclusion part will show your unique research which you have done in your paper. So in these three sections, 99% you will not be including any references unless and until you're just pointing out some other algorithm which was already published. Okay, so this part you should show almost all your unique research which you have done. Fine. And it states the findings, and there should not be any bias. Okay. And in terms of discussion, if you see, a discussion section is also sometimes included, as I told, is to interpret and describe the significance of your findings in the light of what was already known about the research problem being investigated. So in the introduction part you might have given like what is your research problem, that you have to clearly discuss here in the discussion paragraph, discussion section, where you have to tell, you have to correlate what you have written in the introduction like a research problem and how you have solved it. Okay, the next one is a conclusion. So conclusion is intended to help the reader understand why your research should matter to them after they have finished reading the paper. Okay, so it is not a summary of the main topic, okay, but a synthesis of key points, okay, where you have recommended a new areas for the future. So this is very very important. In conclusion, you might have faced some challenges in your research. While doing your research you can include that in the conclusion part. Okay, what problem you have faced. So in almost every research article which you have already read, which you have did some literature review on it, you can find in the conclusion part, you can see what are all the challenges which they have faced. And that problem, if no one has found any solution for that, you can take that as your research problem. Okay, so that is what even you have to give a opportunity to the researchers, to the new researchers, like what they can find the gap, and what is the challenges you have faced, and from this how they can formulate their problem. So conclusions is very very important. And the references, you should write the references better to just include the references related to your research problem between 5 to 7 years. For example, now we are in 2021, so you can take up the references from like 2014, okay, or 2015 is fine. 2014, 2013. So before that, in few cases you might need to refer 1990s or 80s paper, because few diseases might be there from that time, but the source of that you can include, but that should not be more than one. Okay. And because why I'm telling is the technology is always like it is changing, and it is always new. Okay, so you cannot refer the very reason that is a very oldest paper for your research. Fine. Because you don't know, like when you're going to submit your paper, if you're going to submit it on 2023 or even 2024, the 2012 or 2011 paper will be very oldest, okay, which you're trying to refer. So better to include between 5 to 7 years of published article, refer paper published in a SCI or Scopus. So instead of referring any paper, so you have to better go and refer the papers published in SCI or Scopus index journals. If it is a conference paper, it should be like IEEE conferences or a Scopus conferences, like that. And include more than 25 papers in your references, that is more than 25 references. And refer the citation style which was mentioned in the journal, because that is very very important. You have various styles like MLA, APA. Okay, so what style they have suggested, that exact style you have to include in your reference. So in my previous video I have shown like how to easily get the references from the Google Scholar. You can probably look at that and refer from that itself. Apart from this, these are all some other general points, like you have to avoid the plagiarism. In few journals they'll be very strict that it should be less than 10 percentage of plagiarism, because no, the definitions we cannot change, right? And the quotations which was already told by some other scientists or some other inventors, we cannot change that, like a Newton first law or Newton law of gravity. So whatever it may be, we cannot change, right? So that you can include, but your paper should be less than 10%. Okay. And proofread the paper. This is what the main area where every researchers will fail. Once you have completed the paper, we will be rushing to submit the paper. No, you have to proofread the paper completely again. See, anywhere if you have missed the content, like for example, you have to check whether the methods which you have used to research, which you have used to find some difficulty, so whether all the methods you have included in your method part, and you whether you have included all the papers, okay, you have referred in the references that should be cited inside the main article. So that you have to see. And tables and figures, see, your tables and figures should be very very clear, okay, and should be very legible. Legible in the sense what, you should not draw some, you should not draw on your own hand and put it on your paper. Okay, so it should be very clear, and the pixels should be very clear, and every part you have mentioned, that should be clear. Okay. And the next important thing is, see, include the tables and figures wherever it is possible. Okay, that is, you can include the flow diagram, like how your research is flowing off in the introduction part. Okay, at least ensure that you are having 2 to 3 figures. There should be 2 to 3 images in your article. Okay, like a flow diagram and something which is related to your tool. Okay, and the graphs which you have used to interpret the result. Okay, and the tables should be at least 2 to 3. Even more than 3 is fine, it's good, but it should be at least. Okay, because this tables and figures will show what you have done in your paper. So there should be a tables and figures included in your paper. Okay, and don't forget to give a number and name to the table, that is a caption. Okay, all the tables should be given a proper caption and all the figures should be given with a proper captions. If you are copying from the internet, okay, the figures, something like images will be for data mining process. If you're just copying from the internet, what you have to do, you have to cite there, you have to give from which website you have referred it. Okay, or else you can re- redraw the same image with a different type of visualization, that I'll discuss in the another upcoming video. So how to write or how to rephrase or how to redraw an existing image by yourself, and where you know you do not need to include the references, right? So that you can do it. Okay, always keep these 4 things as a important while before submitting your paper. Okay, and before these things, which journal you're going to submit, you just go and refer the author's guideline completely.